What's up, Wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers? Welcome to the video feed for not a Common Sense Sundays, but in fact a Go Tell It to the Wall video feed here. This is actually episode 132. We have returned, not permanently, so don't get excited, to our previous normal weekly day, which is Thursday. Just a couple little reasons, had to squeeze in another episode, and so, just wanted to, we'll explain a little more as we get into the actual episode 132, now that I'm just getting all over the place, and we got a lot to get into today, and I got a busy evening ahead of me. So that being said, let's get right into it.
1, 2, 3, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, Wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers, welcome to another very exciting edition of not Common Sense Sundays, but our originally formatted Go Tell It to the Wall, and this is episode 132. We'll get into some reasoning on why we're doing this on a Thursday. Yes, don't adjust your calendars. I know sometimes we do Monday, different days and all that kind of stuff, so it kind of is how my mood strikes. But before we get into that, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, before episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. That's right, facebook.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. If you're a Facebook user, make sure you follow our page over there. Get all kinds of updates on a weekly, sometimes daily basis. And of course, our YouTube channel, if you're a YouTube user, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. That's right, youtube.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. I think we also have like an @ handle now on there, which is just @go-tell-it-to-the-wall. They added that a while ago, and I didn't do anything with it, but since we already had a custom URL, I believe you can just type that in. Either way, if you just search Go Tell It to the Wall on YouTube, you're going to find our channel. And of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is @SoCalSean, SoCalSean, @SoCalSean. Not everything up there, as I always say, is related to Go Tell It to the Wall on Common Sense Sundays, but especially if you're interested in a lot of the show reviews that we do, you're going to get photographic content on there to kind of match up with a lot of that stuff. And spoiler alert, we got a new set that's going to be going up tomorrow. Just finished that, and it's actually from Shoot and Chase Long Beach. Like a month ago, whenever it was. So make sure you're following on Instagram to get that content. And then, of course, we have SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That is going to give you links to all those social platforms. So if you remember nothing else, just remember SeanO'RourkeLive.com. You're also going to find a link to our Patreon campaign. If you want to help us out financially, that's a great way to do so. If you don't want to get involved with Patreon, but you do still want to help us out financially, you can check out the tab for our merch website. Pick up some Common Sense merch. It links directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. And as I mentioned, do not adjust your calendars. It is, in fact, Thursday. Trying to squeeze in an episode here. Just had a couple busy weekends and get into some of that as we get through this episode. And then on top of that, I've got to finish up in here and then go torture myself with a kid's birthday party. Not that the kids are torture, but where it is. Maybe we'll mention that during parenting. So it is a special Thursday episode. For those of you that have been fans for a long time, we used to record late at night, go live later in the evening on Thursdays, and then post the actual audio and the video itself the following day. So this is kind of a return to that, although it is not as late in the day as it used to be. It used to be get the kid to bed, hit the studio. So it is a little earlier in the day on this particular Thursday. All right, now that we're done with all of that, let's talk about some digital trends, things that are trending on the social platforms over the past week or so, things I found interesting, things I think you might find interesting or not, and I just decided I wanted to talk to a wall about them, so it all kind of depends. Take from that what you will. Anyway, Twitter. Oh, Twitter. I feel like we're talking about Twitter every single week now, every single episode. Well, people officially lost their blue checks. We'd heard this was going to happen on 4/20. I believe, in fact, it did happen right around that time, so a lot of people... especially a lot of people I know personally, lost their blue checks because they didn't want to pay for the premium Twitter blue or whatever it is. And this all kind of started leading to a hashtag called Block the Blue. And this is people that were just going through feeds and blocking people with blue check marks, knowing that they had simply paid for the blue check mark. And so it's kind of backfiring on the algorithm. It's very funny. And a lot of people are got real upset about it there, and even were reporting these block the blue posts like this is unfair. And it's like, dude, people can do what they want. It's their Twitter feed. Just because you want to be in the middle of somebody's feed that doesn't even know you. The other interesting thing is apparently, and you got to love how he positioned this good old Elon there. Some celebrities still had their blue check marks, and they all had to come out and say, I did not pay or provide my phone number, blah, blah, blah. And then we go to find out that Elon, who then tweeted, or whatever, that he's personally paying for some people's blue check marks, which was hilarious because it's like, you're not actually paying, Elon. You just had an engineer flip a switch to keep those blue check marks in place on certain celebrities and people of note. The arguing is hilarious. I find that the most amusing. I even saw a couple people posted, I'm paying $8 a month to preserve free speech. Literally, the word free is in what you're saying, and you're paying. So I don't understand what goes through people's head. Clearly, we will not be paying for any kind of premium blue check marks. I have zero interest in it anyway. I probably wouldn't even want it if they gave us one. So don't worry about that. You're not gonna see. You shouldn't be. Twitter is Twitter. What a dying hellscape that is. But that has led to something else trending on Twitter, which is apparently Blue Sky. This is another app similar to Twitter. I haven't looked at it personally myself. It looks like maybe you have to get an invite from somebody who is already on Blue Sky. Seems like entirely too much work for something that I would be interested in. But nonetheless, it's starting to pop up more. The interesting thing is it was actually created by the founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, I believe is his last name. His first name is definitely Jack, because when he owned Twitter and started it up, he was just at Jack. He didn't even have to put his last name on there. So we'll see if this goes anywhere. I have seen notable people as I scroll through Twitter, because as you know, I don't tweet a lot. I like to get some of my news and sports information, music information from Twitter, and I have seen some accounts that I do follow that have started Blue Sky accounts. So let's see if this kind of becomes the new Twitter, or even becomes a thing. And because I guess that Mastodon, which was supposed to be a Twitter alternative replacement, did not do well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Blue Sky does here. All right, a couple hashtags I found amusing and interesting. Hashtag, sometimes it's hard to remember. At my age, it's sometimes hard to remember almost anything. In fact, I was joking with one of my kids' friends' moms the other day, because her kid remembered something like that, and she's like, nope, wouldn't have remembered. She's like, I got to set alarms and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, trust me, I have like 5 ongoing to-do lists, and then I set alarms in my phone to remind me to do things. I can't even remember to take a pill without an alarm in my phone. It's something I got to do. But on the other side, my kid forgets nothing. I could have, which is funny, because she'll say, what'd you do at school today? I don't remember. It's like, okay, but God forbid you said a month ago, like, oh, maybe in the next month we'll go to the zoo. Boom. She's gonna, oh, you said a month ago you said we'd go to the zoo by now. Like, oh my God. Sure, I guess we're going to the zoo. Kids are like elephants. They just don't forget anything unless they don't want to remember it. You know what I mean? There's that viral meme going around where parents like, ask my kindergartner what they did at school today, and they said, oh, nothing. And then they saw a post on Instagram, or for those of you without kids, there's like actually there's social media-ish sites that schools can use now to post photos, so that it's not going out to the public. So it's probably one of those. And apparently saw her kindergartner holding an alligator that day. It's like, oh, nothing, just holding an alligator in school. Like, wait, what? What's going on here? So that's really, that's kids in a nutshell. Another one that was trending recently, hashtag if I was president. I got to be honest, I have zero interest in being president. I've always said from the beginning, if anyone who goes into politics is most likely not doing it for the right reasons. And then the few that do it for the right reasons, maybe in a small town, if they continue to work up the ladder, especially something like the presidency, that's not the type of person I want to be friends with. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. They're always going to have at least some of their own interests at heart. So I wouldn't want to be, but it did remind me of the Ghetto Boys song, which is a classic. For those of you not familiar with it, you might remember the printer scene from Office Space, the great Mike Judge film, where they are destroying the printer in the middle of the field, and I believe that is the song playing over it. But it's kind of like a 4-verse song, and the last verse is one of the guys in Ghetto Boys. I'm not super familiar with him. I do happen to own that song because it was very popular in the 90s. It's like, damn, it feels good to be a gangsta. It's the song, something along those lines. But the last verse is a guy rapping about if he was president. So when I saw this hashtag, I immediately thought of the Ghetto Boys song. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a good 90s hip hop song. So definitely go check that one out. And like I said, if you've seen Office Space, you've heard it. You just might not realize the full extent of the song, because it's obviously not the entire song. It just plays over them destroying that iconic scene of them destroying the printer or fax, whatever it was, the thing that they're always fighting with in the office. All right, hashtag water talk. So apparently this is a thing, and this isn't TALK, it's TOK, water talk. Apparently there's a whole movement on TikTok encouraging people to drink water, which is, all right, big water, at it again. But the thing behind this is apparently it's all about artificially flavoring water. So you've probably all, and these, I feel like they're not quite as popular, but a few years ago you had these like Mio, and it's like little packets you put in water, and trust me, the liquid IV ones, sometimes that's a necessity, but it's not really so much for the flavoring and the sweetness. It's more of the electrolytes and the advantage of pouring that into a bottle of water. But apparently this is a big trend, and people will watch anything. Apparently there's one of these main water talk people who has like thousands of whatever you have on TikTok, subscribers or views, or I don't know, something like that. But it's literally all about putting artificial flavoring too. Not like, I'll squeeze a little bit of lemon in your water and give it a lemony flavor. No, it's like the sweet and low and kind of crap like that. So be aware those things are not the best for your body. Things like aspartame and artificial sweeteners. In moderation, I'm sure they're fine. But they're not the best thing to just be drinking constantly. Me personally, I don't even like sparkling water. This LaCroix stuff and all this other. No, my wife drinks it like crazy. I just drink water. This mug right here, for those of you watching the video feed, straight flat water. It is filtered through my refrigerator. It's just flat water, though. I like good old-fashioned water. It's refreshing, keeps me hydrated, keeps me from losing my voice while I'm sitting here yelling at a wall. It's the good stuff as far as I'm concerned. And speaking of TikTok, before we round out our digital trends for this particular episode, there is apparently a TikToker named Amelia Goldsmith. She went into a grocery store, filming herself, of course, doing this on TikTok, because you have to film yourself doing fucking everything these days, apparently, and then was surprised when she tried to offer to multiple people to pay for their entire groceries. And apparently at least 3 different people said, no, thank you. And this got her very emotional to the point where she was in tears because she just wanted to try to help people. Let's unpack this for a sec here. Here's the thing. Even with the constant media and cameras and everything else, these people are still wary about you just shoving a camera in their face. You know, nobody has to concede to your demands to buy them groceries so that you can get views and some clout on TikTok. You're allowed to do those things without filming them. And this is what drives me nuts. She started to cry. Stop doing this for views. If you really want to help people, go to a houseless shelter where people really are in need. And then the other thing, it could be insulting to somebody. Here's the thing. If somebody who's filming me came up to me in the grocery store and said, let me pay for all your groceries, I would kind of look at myself and be like, do I look like, and it's fine if you do. I mean, I wear a t-shirt and jeans everywhere, so sweatpants, for God's sake. So I guess maybe you could. But it'd be like, why are you shoving a camera in my face and wanting to pay for my groceries? It makes no sense. And then for her to tear up about it. Oh, Lord, get a life, Amelia Goldsmith. Find something better to do. Don't use others for your views and clout. It's really, utterly ridiculous. All right. Let's move along to some mental health. So this actually popped up in the past couple days, and I really, it's always been an anchor of what we do here at Go Tell It to the Wall, and Common Sense Sundays and everything else. It's a huge anchor to what we do. We're very much proponents of mental health, mental illness awareness, and ending the stigma. And I have often talked about certain celebrities and athletes that have been open about it. Most recently, we had John Fetterman. Well, we had another one this week, just over the past couple days, in fact. And it was very personal for me because he happens to be the reason I went to film school. And that would be the uber-talented Kevin Smith. Actually did an exclusive interview. I think it was with People. I read it online, where he opened up about his battle with mental illness and his treatment on top of all of it. So for those of you that haven't heard about this, he checked himself into a mental health rehab facility back in January for 1 month. He did this for a month. Obviously kept it quiet while it was happening. And this is because he woke up one day and he felt himself in a dark place. And for those of you out there that deal with mental illness, you know that this can often happen. Sometimes you wake up and it's just not a good day and you can't even pinpoint what it is. So he kind of reached out for help, ended up in this facility, and started to realize that there were incidents specifically from his childhood that he had constantly suppressed and pushed down. And even if you don't deal with mental health problems or mental illness, we've all been guilty of repressing certain emotions, certain memories, depending how toxic they can be or how they have negatively affected our lives. Everybody's done this. There's not a single person on earth that hasn't kind of suppressed something, pushed something down you. And sometimes okay. Sometimes you see a horrible news story but when it starts to affect you throughout your entire life, that's when these things need to be investigated. So like I said, he went to a very dark place, which he then also spoke about the other guy, which is kind of this persona that he puts on. And if you've ever seen, Kevin Smith do some of his podcast work, he moves a mile a minute, and he's constantly wanting to entertain. He's always working. He's got multiple, stand-up things that he does, and he's got podcasts, and he's obviously a writer, director, just all kinds of stuff. He's constantly at Comic-Cons. He owns part of a movie theater now in New Jersey, so he's going back and forth there. All kinds of crazy stuff, and he realized that he was doing that not necessarily to fill a void, but to continue to suppress those certain emotions. So he kind of let the other guy take over, and I think. Again, even those of you that don't deal with mental illness can probably relate to that as well. Sometimes it's not a terrible thing. I do it. I do it when I come in here, but it's not me completely different. It is me, my personality, but there's a certain line when it comes to being on. From a business standpoint, entertainment standpoint, it might be slightly different, but you don't want it to be completely different. And that's where he kind of started to realize that he was using that to repress his issues. And apparently, and all of this is widely available in an article, but I want to talk about it for those of you that haven't read this article. He realized that when he was 6, there was some sexual abuse involved. And I don't want to get specific as to, you're welcome to read the article, but he realized that he was sexually abused in a certain way. And it was something that he didn't even realize until he was speaking to someone about it, because it seemed innocent at the time, but then looking back, and we're literally an expert, a therapist said, no, that would qualify as sexual abuse. And then on top of that, another instance when he was 9, where his teacher called him fat. Now we know that Kevin Smith has dealt with weight issues over the years. Unfortunately, he had a heart attack, which put him into much better health, and now he's a vegan and everything else, and has dropped a lot of that weight. But he dealt with weight issues for his entire life. So imagine at 9 years old being called fat by your teacher. So these are two of the things he was struggling with and went there to deal with. Now, the other interesting thing that he brought up, and this is something I've often talked about, when it comes to physical health versus mental health. But apparently in this facility, there were, veterans from the military who were in there talking about PTSD. And he said at first, he felt silly, they're talking about losing friends in the heat of battle, and he's like, my teacher called me fat when I was 9. But he did move past that, because that's the thing, is you can't sit here and say one is worse than the other, but we need to be open about all of it. And that's an important takeaway that I got from the article, is that realization that, yes, it may seem silly and trivial, But it's just as important to talk about that and move past those suppressed thoughts and issues, because that's the only way you can move forward. Realizing that importance is a huge thing. And I want all of you out there that deal with these things or know someone that deals with it. It may seem trivial, but even a trivial thing can have a huge impact on somebody's mental well-being. It's just like when we'd compare, it's hard to get upset with a professional athlete who's dealing with mental health problems because you can't see it. Whereas if a professional athlete breaks their leg, you can see it. Like, no, they can't play basketball. They have a broken leg. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's difficult to play a sport when you're dealing with a mental illness as well. So that I really kind of gravitated toward. And he's worked on self-acceptance, which is something that everybody in life, whether you deal with mental health problems or mental illness, everybody in life needs to do. And that less need to always be on. Now, like I said, that being on, sometimes that's how it is. If I'm hosting a live event, I'm still me, but I'm on. You know what I mean? And that's something that I've been doing for, oh my gosh, almost 30 years. Since I started hosting live events as a teenager. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. And another thing that Kevin Smith spoke to, the positive aspects of, as far as what he was dealing with, is mindfulness. And a lot of this is, and I encourage you, if you're interested, to look up more specifics on it, but a lot of it involves focusing on breathing. There's another thing called CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, where you learn to train out certain thoughts, which is funny, not funny, but it's funny when it comes to mental illness, because you want to open up about things that you're suppressing, but then depending on what kind of mental illness you're dealing with, like mine, for example, obsessive compulsive disorder, CBT is huge for me, because there are things that need to be dealt with that may have been repressed or suppressed or, bottled up, certain emotions. But then there's just certain things that a person with obsessive compulsive disorder obsesses over. I can't change the fact that Russia is engaged in war crimes right now in the Ukraine. So those are the kind of things that you do want to use mindfulness for. If it's something that's out of your control. In fact, we talked about that AA prayer, I think, last episode or the episode before. That differentiation. And the thing I'm most proud of Kevin Smith about is he did this because he wants to be open and help others. And this is what I always say. This is why we talk about it here at Go Tell It to the Wall. This is why I learned to be open with it, because if it helps even just one person, it is well worth it. And I can tell you, I always say don't meet your idols, because you often will be disappointed. In my experience, the one exception is Kevin Smith. He is one hell of a human being. He has one of the biggest hearts out there. I mean, that's probably why he had a heart attack, because his heart's so big it just wanted to burst out of his chest. I know that's medically not how it works, but he is just one of those kind, genuine people. And you can see it through his work, through how he treats others. And if you do have the privilege to meet him in person, you will absolutely feel that energy and the genuineness that is Kevin Smith. So good on you, Kevin. I'm so happy to see this, and I encourage you to read the article. Just look it up. And in fact, if you follow Kevin Smith on socials, I believe he shared it like yesterday or the day before. I kind of sat on it for a day, and I already knew. And then sure enough, I got a few messages from friends that know I love Kevin Smith and know that I talk openly about mental health and mental illness, and said, "Did you?" And I said, "Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I did eventually get around to taking the time to read the whole thing and understanding his struggles and how it relates to what a lot of people struggle with on a daily basis throughout their lives. So I encourage you to check that out. All right, some positive news. So I didn't really talk about it much, but I made it back from Florida. That's right. Did you even know I was there? Last week, me and the family flew out to Florida. We had our house and dog sitter here, holding down the fort, as they say. And we went out there for good reason. My wife's grandmother turned 100 on April 20th. And I never say it to her, but I'm always, oh, it's Hitler's birthday. My wife's grandmother is very Polish, so she would not, and I don't mean to laugh about it, but it's just, if you talk to a Polish person about Hitler in Germany, you don't want to give them that association. But she did turn 100 on April 20th. And I stayed out of trouble. That's the positive news. I was actually a bit nervous going to Florida. Now, granted, it was South Florida. I'm not in the Panhandle, but and saw not a ton. Saw some of the open carry going on, but luckily we were close to the coast and well worth it. But I am happy to say I survived Florida. Did not get arrested. Kept my mouth shut for the most part, and did actually have a good time hanging with my wife's family. And specifically her grandmother, who, like I said, turned 100. On the not so positive side, every time I go somewhere like Florida or Texas or even like the Midwest, I am reminded that I am not built for the humidity at all. I'm not built for the really dry heat either, like in Nevada and Arizona. I don't really like that either. This is why I'm Southern California. Not too humid, not too dry, just kind of right in that sweet spot there. And, we get dry weather and stuff, but I melt in the. We stepped out of the airport and I just went, ugh, immediately out of the airport. Just, oh my God. But there are, I will say, two positive things about Florida that I often forget. And one of these is really true about many states, and that would be the water pressure. For those of you that don't live in California, you literally can't buy certain shower heads here in California because the water pressure is just not as strong. And this is obviously to conserve water because we're a drought-stricken state. Despite all that rain, we're still not completely out of it, although it did help immensely. But yeah, I felt like, and I remember when I take my first shower outside of California. I feel like there's some states, I'm sure, not just California, but this happened to me in Texas 2 years ago when I was in Texas, and I turn on the shower and I'm like Kramer in that episode of Seinfeld where he gets like the elephant washing shower head and it's flying back, and but it's like, oh my God, this is fantastic. My hair is just loving getting rinsed by this immense water pressure. But the other thing that I really wish we had here in California is the warmer ocean water. And for those people I talk to down there, they're just so used to like 75-degree ocean water, and it's beautiful. You get in there and you just float in the water. I did that a couple different times during our stay there. But here in California, in Southern California, you do not get, it's rare to get 75-degree water. It's like 60 degrees. And whenever I tell it to people, they're like, what, how do you, it's like, you just get used to it, and that's why I end up not going I love the beach. That's why I end up not going to the beach here quite as often. And in fact, as we move into parenting, I will say my kid just loves the ocean. She's an ocean baby. I think genetically she got it from me because I grew up going to the beach every day, especially once I was able to drive. I would, during summers, and I would work in the morning. I'd hop in my car with my bodyboard or surfboard, and I'd be heading down to the beach for a sunset session, then just before sunset, hitting the water for a couple hours, and then a lot of times like a little bonfire at the beach. That was just life. And my kid, she's been to the ocean before, but now she's at the right age where she's really running around and trying, and I got to wrangle her to an extent because, you get riptides and everything else, and it's all right, keep an eye on the kid, and she's just running in and out of the water, wanting to build sandcastles, looking for seashells, all kinds of stuff. And the extra funny thing was she hadn't been in the ocean in a while. Oh my gosh, like a year or two. And, so we're in a swimming pool, and she's like, I want to go in the swimming pool. And we're both like, no, my wife and I, we're going to go to the beach and go in the ocean. I don't want to go in the ocean. I want to go in the pool. 5 minutes after getting to the beach, and then she didn't want to go in the pool anymore. She just wanted the ocean, and she thoroughly enjoyed it. Couldn't get her to get out of the ocean, in fact, and that's where, like, I'm getting tired. I'm getting a little old, and I'm having to wrangle her while dealing nothing crazy, but a decent rip here and there as we were in the ocean, and it was just extremely tiring for me. And then the one thing I will say, the water's warmer, but the sand is a little coarser there, so I'm on my knees, like, helping my daughter in and out of the water, and after a while I look down on my knees and oh my God, I'm like scratched up here from coarse sand and seashells all along the coastline there. But oh my gosh, she loves it. and and now I'm like, all right, we got to go more often because she's just absolutely in love with the ocean. And I will say, we flew there. A couple years ago we did a road trip across the country. But we flew there this time around. We were there for like 5 days celebrating grandma, my kid's great grandma, and airplane bathrooms with kids. Luckily, direct flight. Gotta love a direct flight. And I swear we made it there in like record time. 4 hours and like 20 minutes or something like that. 23, like crazy. And the pilot gets, and I'm like, really? That's all? Let's do it. But of course, taking the kiddo into an airplane bathroom. And I feel like bathrooms have just gotten smaller and smaller, which I'm not going to complain about a smaller bathroom too much, because as long as they're not taking more space away from the seats. But these were quite small bathrooms. And so I walk my kid there, and I'm like, do you want to just go in by yourself, or do you need me to stand there? Nope, come in with me. And I'm standing in this bathroom, hunched over, like, let's go. Moving along here. This is not comfortable for me. Those bathrooms are not built for someone my height. And I'm not even that tall. I can't imagine someone who's, 6'5", 6'6", trying to navigate one of these bathrooms with a kid. It just doesn't work. Not built for someone to stand that long. And then another thing, I've talked about this with my kid lately, and just heels dug in on certain food, and everything's, that's gross. That's gross. And I've hit the point where I'm like, stop saying things are gross. Like, you loved this yesterday. Oh, it's gross. And she's 6 going on 16. But we had an interesting thing. We get there, immediately go see my wife's grandmother. Say hi, and then I'm starving, so I'm like, let's get some food. And there's a Wendy's like right nearby where her grandmother is. So all right, let's go there. And of course, my kid goes, I don't like cheese. What do they have? They have cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets. I don't like cheeseburgers. You just had a cheeseburger from McDonald's like a week ago. I only like McDonald's cheeseburgers. I said, okay, you know what? You're going to try this. So we get a kid's meal. And she's still hesitant. Just get her a plain cheeseburger. She takes 2 bites of the thing, and we're actually eating it in the car on the way to where we were staying. And she has a couple bites, and she goes, oh my gosh, this is good, just like McDonald's. And I went, of course it is. It's just a fucking fast food cheeseburger. Like, of course you like it. God damn it. And then, of course, on the other side of things, I made burgers on the grill yesterday, and she's like, nope, I'm having, that's why I made hot dogs, too. Nope, I'm not having that hamburger. Like, it's a cheeseburger. This is better than when you were eating the McDonald's one. Come on. But, of course, that's just how it is. All right, one more thing here. I want to give a good on you to Mattel. They always do good work. I actually worked with Mattel for about a year when I had a contract with Universal Studios Home Entertainment. I worked on their Barbie properties as well as their Monster High properties. In fact, there's a couple DVDs over here to my left that I keep and they're not even opened. Maybe I'll let my kid watch them one day. But it's properties that I worked on, literally. And they have yet again come out with an inclusive doll. This one specifically is a Barbie with Down syndrome, which I found awesome and fascinating at the same time, because here's the thing. Inclusivity is the most important thing. We talk about this, it's a child of color who sees another person of color, and like Black Panther, the Marvel character, and they feel more included. They're able to see more of themselves in that. And here's another great example of what Mattel has done to make kids that are dealing with Down syndrome, that have Down syndrome, seeing themselves in a doll that they are playing with. So this is fantastic. Now, I haven't specifically looked for any, but I guarantee there's some assholes out there that will complain about it. But they can go ahead and complain about it in their own houses, because this is by far a good thing that Barbie and that Mattel and Barbie are doing. Oh, and another side note. The reason I got to finish up here as quickly as possible is I'm going to go put myself through a little bit of hell. I mentioned one of my daughter's friends has a birthday party. Not that I mind going to birthday parties, but it's at the it's at Chuck E. Cheese. I loved Chuck E. Cheese when I was a kid, but now you just walk in there and it's a headache when you're an adult. It's like, holy shit, there's kids running around. There's a mouse yelling at me. Like, I don't know what's happening here. Games all over the place. Probably going to spend $50 for her to win a bunch of tickets and go home with a pencil eraser. So that's going to be a lot of fun tonight. I mean, I'm all for going to the birthday parties, but man, that's a headache as soon as you walk in that door. Which I was trying to remember too, because I haven't been to Chuck E. Cheese in a few years. Pre-pandemic, went there for a kid's birthday party, but it was they booked it early in the day because that's when you could have like the private parties, and it was like two different birthday parties, so just wide open space there. But I was trying to remember. I was like, do they have beer? Because if I can go there and have a drink, it makes it a little bit better dealing with all the noise and the madness there. All right, let's move along to some common sense here. So as I said, we flew out to Florida And weirdly, because not totally weirdly, because the airline is not as old as many of the airlines that existed in the 80s, but weirdly, as much as I have flown, I've never flown on JetBlue. And we're usually a Delta family. We got all the perks with Delta and stuff, and my wife flies a lot for work and ends up flying on Delta, so we have all the points and the perks and stuff. But the one nonstop flight that into the airport we were going to, which is in West Palm Beach, was through JetBlue. Okay, we're doing JetBlue. And a lot of great things about JetBlue that I found to be good. First of all, free Wi-Fi. I never spring paying for the Wi-Fi on airplanes, but it's free. And I was like, my wife's like, oh, getting on the Wi-Fi. And I handed her my phone. I was like, get me on the Wi-Fi. So it gets me on the Wi-Fi. And I'm literally chatting up Discord, from 30,000 feet. And in fact, I made a Instagram post from like 30,000 feet on the flight home. So that was fantastic. And then it's funny because it took me a minute because, on a lot of airplanes you go on and they have like some kind of sitcoms and movies and stuff. They didn't have a ton of options there. Then I noticed a tab for DirecTV. They straight up had like DirecTV, and you had the whole guide there. So flying out there, I watched the Boston Marathon. It was marathon day in Boston the day we flew out, and we're in the middle of hockey and basketball playoffs. I'm watching sports on there. I'm ordering a drink and some snacks, and I'm just like, fantastic to just be able to watch those sports there. So I thought that was great from JetBlue, and very courteous staff and everything else. The one complaint I have, and this is a common sense thing here, and this is why it's in common sense, and I don't know if this is all JetBlue planes, but I look down on the armrest, and there's like a controller to scroll through, the screen that's on the back of the thing. And the screen is also touch screen, so you don't necessarily need that. And the headphones plug into the armrest, which I didn't mind because it's on the front there. But the controls are like it's an armrest. And the controls are in the middle of the armrest. What do you do with an armrest? You rest your fucking arm on it. And on top of that, I'm sitting on the aisle. I got my kid in the middle. She's watching stuff. And so the controls are on her right side armrest or on my right side armrest. I'm changing her channel, changing my channel, and like in the middle watching a basketball game. Suddenly I'm like, why to go? Oh, I'm leaning on this thing again. So everything was great, but let's do a little bit better with these armrest controls, because for God's sake, I did it dozens of times, each flying there and flying back. And I just had to keep readjusting it. And it's like, come on, why do we have this here? Even on, put it on the side or just anywhere else, but it's literally right where my elbow went. I was like, this is ridiculous. I know, first world problems, but come on, who thought of this? It's literally called an armrest. You rest your arm on it. Why are the controls right where you rest your arm? Good Lord. Eventually, I put my daughter's armrest up. I was like, all right, I'll stop bumping it. She can have her headphones plugged in, and she can still touch the touch screen. So I'm on the aisle. I couldn't put mine up. So I'm leaning on, just subconsciously leaning on it the entire flight. Let's do a little bit better there. JetBlue. Everything else was great. Love it, JetBlue. Let's do a little bit better there. All right, Disney versus DeSantis, the gift that keeps on giving. This week, Disney actually filed a lawsuit against DeSantis. This is not going to end well for DeSantis. In fact, I have seen a few posts pop up that are like, does DeSantis know what he's doing here? And I even said at one point, I was like, yeah, he's going to find out who really owns Florida, and that would be the mouse. So they have filed a lawsuit against him. I'm not going to get into legalese on this. I did take a quarter of entertainment law while I was in film school, but I'm still not qualified to speak on the legalese and the finer points of why exactly he's being sued. But this is just an ongoing fight, and it's not going to end well for DeSantis. There's just no way. Money talks. Money rules everything, and the mouse pretty much has more money than any company on the face of the earth. So it's going to be interesting. We had some news. I believe this happened recently. At least popped up recently. There was a trans marathon runner in the London Marathon, and she finished the marathon. And then apparently that caused a stir because they said something like 14,000 women finished behind her. And so they said, that's not fair. Here's the thing, and I've brought this up many times before. She didn't win the fucking thing. She didn't come in second or third. She was in like 40,000th place. There's thousands of people run this marathon. She was or like 4,000th place. And I think it was 14, whatever it was. And everyone's freaking out. That's not fair. She took away from, really? Oh, yeah, she took away from those 14,000 people that were just happy to finish a marathon. Who the fuck cares? I am not qualified to sit here and speak on this. I'm not going to touch it. But this is such a non-issue in this situation. Now, if we were talking about winning and maybe pushing somebody else up, you want to get into that debate, it's not for me. But like 4,000th place, something crazy like this. And she offered to give back the medal. Said if it, I didn't want to offend anyone, and said she'd give back the medal. Here's the thing. Again, not first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 20th place or anything. At marathons, they just give you a medal for finishing. She didn't take a medal away from anybody. Let's calm the hell down on these trans issues, especially when they are not even an issue. Who, really? So she beat out a bunch of elite athletes who were below 4,000th place? Give me a fucking break. All right, Tucker Carlson got fired. Oh, man. I would say good on you, Fox News, but, this is obviously a bit of a PR stunt as well as a money-saving thing, and he was one of the worst of the worst on that network, but they're not going to get any better. So everybody celebrated this. Likely a casualty of their settlement with Dominion voting machines, which still I don't even like to think about that because everyone's, $787 billion or whatever. It's like, do you know how much fucking money Fox News makes? They paid so that they can continue lying to people. Literally what they did. But Tucker Carlson, of course, is out at Fox News. They're still horrible. Still wouldn't recommend watching anything they do or listening to anything they do because they literally have gone to court and say, yes, we lie. We are not a news organization. That's my favorite meme. One of my favorites. It's like, Fox News, we are lying to you, Fox News audience. No, you're not. But that's just what they've gone to court and said they do. It's right there. It's documented. Legally documented. But people are fucking stupid. Speaking of stupid, Marge, good old MTG, that crazy bitch down there in Georgia or up in Washington, wherever the hell she is at the moment, had some crazy comments. I know this is not shocking at all that Marge had some crazy comments, but this one I found extremely insulting. She was apparently... there was a hearing of some kind, and I didn't get into all the details of it, but she essentially came out and said, if you're not a mother or a parent unless you are a biological mother or parent. Beyond insulting to so many people, myself included. My father is not my biological father. He is very much my dad. He is very much my father, but he is not my biological father. So, Marge, you're telling me that's not my parent? I can tell you that you are 100% wrong on this, and that is my parent. And you can't say adoptive parents love their children any less. This is incredibly insulting to anyone who has adopted children, to anyone who is adopted themselves or has been involved with that. This is absolutely ridiculous, and we continue to let this unhinged bitch talk. It's got to stop. It absolutely has to stop. Do better, Georgia. All right. Oh, man, more crazy people. There's a viral video going around of a woman in a bikini, an American flag bikini top, so you already know where this is going, and some large gun. I don't know if it's an AR-15 or whatever. I don't get into debates. If I see a gun that looks ridiculous and no civilian needs it, then I don't care what it's called. She's also very upset at Bud Light in the same way that Kid Rock is upset at Bud Light. She then proceeds to take this large gun and shoot up a bunch of cases of Bud Light. She missed with like the first 7 shots. This is one of those guns, whatever the fuck it's called. It's a gun. If you got one of those guns, you don't need it. I don't care if it's shooting like a. She misses with like the first 7 shots, and she's like bouncing, like barely able to hold the fucking thing. Eventually hits some of the Bud Light, but she's all over the place. And she thinks it's into, like, oh, fuck you, Bud Light, and all this other stuff. To me, what I got out of it is it's a great example of why people don't need guns like this. What are you doing, woman? So we should continue to circulate that video to be like, see, this is why people don't need these large guns, because they don't even know what to do with them. Missed 7 shots. Can you imagine, like, if it just starts shooting wildly everywhere? Give me a break with that. Great example of why nobody needs big Guns. All right, we got a class action lawsuit. This one actually going on in California. So full disclosure to all of you Wall fans, I am part of this class action lawsuit. If you remember, I have spoken about it. I was a full-time smoker for many years. When I got married, I promised my wife I'd quit smoking, and I took the loophole of vaporizing after that. And eventually, as many former smokers do and probably did and probably still do, found my way to Juul, which was the little e-cigarette, and you buy cartridges for it. Apparently, California has settled a class action lawsuit with Juul, and because I had purchased Juul products, I'm actually getting a piece of that pie. So if you live in California and you purchase Juul products in California, check your mailbox. I got a card in the mail saying, hey, do you want to be part of this? And I said, sure. And I went online and said, yep, give me some money, whatever it is. Might be $5, who knows? But that is going on. And common sense says they probably deserved it because there was a lot of deception going on, and still is when it comes to e-cigs. You really should. Don't smoke e-cigs. Don't smoke real cigarettes either. If you want to have the occasional cigarette or a cigar, that's fine. Don't smoke them regularly. Don't be like a half a pack a day guy, which is very much who I was for years. And I will say, if cigarettes didn't smell bad and weren't bad for you, I'd be smoking like crazy. But they smell bad, they're bad for you, and now they're just damn expensive. All right, kids, don't touch cigarettes. That's not what I meant. It's bad for you. It's not worth it. All right, zombied. This is apparently the new ghosting. And for those of you not familiar with ghosting, this is when you're dating someone, you're talking to them or whatever, and you just stop communicating. You just disappear. You say, ghosted. And apparently zombied now is similar to ghosting, but it's because what do zombies do? They come back from the dead. And so apparently this new thing is people are being zombied, where they talking to someone, dating someone, go on a few dates, they hear nothing from them, and then a few months later, suddenly they pop back up. You got to love millennials and Gen Z or whatever these generations are that come up with words for things that have existed since the beginning of time. This existed since before I was around, I'm sure. There's literally whole jokes about it, like, the whole "you up?" like, ha ha ha, no, type thing. This has happened like crazy, but apparently now we have a new name for it. So hopefully none of you are getting zombied out there. Thank God I'm married, so I don't have to deal with any of this navigating the dating world these days, and everything else is just horrendous out there. I don't know how single people deal with it. All right, one more thing here in Common Sense. We got a couple quick entertainment news things, and then we're going to wrap up episode 132. So, as I've always said, I tend to not contribute on Twitter. Found myself being the only one awake where we were staying in Florida last week, and was scrolling through Twitter, found Jim Henson was trending. Now, along with Kevin Smith, Jim Henson is very much an idol and hero of mine. If you're watching the video feed, you can see there's Animal right there. There's a Mupsy. I've got Kevin Smith stuff and Henson stuff all over the freaking place, especially behind me. I got a vintage lunch, all kinds of stuff back there. So I click on this. I'm like, oh, why Jim Henson trending? Is something cool going on? No. Apparently, people dug up a Sesame Street clip from 2020 featuring one of the guys from Queer Eye. I want to say his name's Jonathan. I was telling my wife about it. It's the hairstylist guy with the long hair and the beard. He's got like the long flowing locks. And he's like doing something with Elmo. And so all these conservatives freaked out and they said, what are we showing our kids? And it's like, oh my God, a gay person. Holy shit. This is definitely something to get upset about. But what got me, multiple people went on there, and that's why Jim Henson specifically was trending, and said Jim Henson is turning in his grave right now, knowing that this is happening. So I took a breath, and I said, well, I'm going to insert myself right now. And so I responded to a couple of them, because for those of you that aren't aware, Jim Henson was incredibly pro-LGBTQ. He had no problem with that entire community and was very much in favor of LGBTQ rights. This is documented. We know this. So I said, well, tell me you know nothing about Jim Henson without telling me you know nothing about Jim Henson. And I got to say, for those of you that don't remember me promoting Twitter years ago, my Twitter handle has to do with my Playa name, my Burning Man name, and it is literally @MagicMuppet. There's Muppet in my fucking Twitter handle. So, of course, I went around responding to a lot of people. keep the Muppets out your fucking mouth. And so I'm sitting here in Florida drinking a beer going, hopefully I don't get the door busted down and get arrested for telling conservatives to fuck off and that they know nothing about Jim Henson. But if you're somebody that thinks that, I encourage you to actually learn about Jim Henson because it's the dumbest thing. It's one of the dumbest things, rolling in his grave. No, he's not. He's clapping. For God's sake. And that's the other thing. And people are like, defund PBS, defund PBS. This is a clip from 2020. So, and rightfully people were defending it too. They were like, so you pulled up a clip from 2020 to try to make some point, and they're like, defund PBS. And I had to Google it because for those of you not aware, Sesame Street actually airs on HBO now. But it does, in fact, go on PBS a year after it airs on HBO. But they're like, defund PBS. And it's like, dude, HBO paid to make this. Not PBS. Yeah, it does air there a year later, but it's HBO, not PBS. You got to love people in their ignorance. Now, I'm going to dig my heels in and make an argument about something I don't know a fucking thing about. Good job, conservatives. All right, a couple entertainment news things here. I mentioned that new Rancid single that came out, and we have since found out that they have an entire new album coming out, and it is smack dab in the middle of my May-June gauntlet. We get to see Rancid in Vegas for Punk Rock Bowling, and then the following Friday we get a brand new Rancid album. Cannot wait for this one. I might pre-order the vinyl, but I don't have a lot of their stuff on vinyl. Either way, I will be picking up, at the very least, the digital version, because as for those of you that have been longtime listeners, Rancid is a top 3 band for me personally. The NFL draft kicks off tonight, so if you have a big football fan friend, they might disappear for a little while tonight and be paying attention to that this weekend. It's wild how the NFL is. This is just the draft. This is finding out where some players are going to play. It's not even games or anything else, but people just clamor and eat it up. And it's coverage everywhere and all this other stuff. I won't watch any of it. I mean, I will look at my ESPN website and be like, oh, cool. That's who got drafted? Well, yep, they got drafted. The funny thing is I am a Patriots and Rams fan. And if for those of you that don't know anything about NFL and football, the Patriots and Rams do not do a lot of drafting high in the draft. They don't go after these stars. They kind of trade away their picks or pick much lower in the draft. So there's nothing from a team standpoint for me to be interested in today because those are the two teams I follow. I do find it interesting, but I don't need to sit there and watch it. I read. I'm like, oh, cool. They picked that guy who I saw play a little bit in college. I don't pay enough attention. All right, last thing I'm going to leave you with, Jerry Springer. That Jerry Springer unfortunately passed away today at 79. I got to say I was never a huge Jerry Springer fan, but I will say for those of us that were alive in the 90s, it spawned an entire genre of trash TV existed, but really took that trash TV to another level. And then, of course, for years, anytime somebody kind of started to get into a fight or a scuffle, there would be an immediate chant of Jerry, 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 because that's what the crowd would do on the Jerry Springer Show, because inevitably it wasn't a Jerry Springer Show episode unless people were getting into a fight. In fact, like the Bodyguard dude got his own show after a little while. It was kind of wild. So rest in peace, Jerry Springer. At least he lived a decent life, and I got to imagine he made some money off of that damn show, and former mayor of Cincinnati as well. Damn politicians. I kid. I will say, fascinating thing out of the Major League Baseball. For those of you that don't watch, teams are doing this home run celebration thing, and the guy hits a home run, he goes back to the dugout or the bench. For those of you, whatever it's called, dugout in baseball, but it's the bench. And then they'll wear like a hat, and they'll run up and down. Like I've seen cowboy hats and all this other stuff, and slightly offensive headwear going on with the Anaheim Angels there, but I can't speak to it. Just it seems, but who knows? I mean, they have the Shohei Ohtani, so I don't know if he. Either way, so the Atlanta baseball team, this is hilarious. New Era makes all the baseball hats. I've got New Era hats all around the house here. They make the official baseball hats and other sports hats as well. They're like the number one hat maker. And none of my band hats are New Era, but they're number one hat maker. And the Atlanta baseball team had an oversized baseball hat with their logo on it that they were putting on and running up and down the dugout with. Well, New Era called them and said, you know what, you can't do that anymore because it's not an official New Era hat. Really, New Era? Which then, from a common sense standpoint, I said to myself, So New Era, just make them a giant hat and send it to them, and then it's a New Era hat. What's the big deal here? But you got to love business, and so we can wear cowboy hats and all kinds of offensive headwear. And this is the Atlanta baseball team. We're not worried about their offensive chant, but God forbid they wear a non-New Era branded hat. Holy hell, business is kind of just such a muck, just muck-filled area that I don't care for outside of how much I have to deal with it personally. All right, on that note, offensive baseball teams, NFL drafts, Jerry Springer, that is going to do it for us. We are not going to be back. We're not going to be on this Sunday. I've got to host a charity event, and it's going to take up a lot of my time on Sunday. But we will. That's partly why we have this kind of off-schedule episode here. But we will be back the following Sunday for our first episode of May. We'll be back to the Common Sense Sundays format there. So make sure you're checking our socials for updates regarding that. And speaking of our socials, if you're a Facebook user, make sure you're following our page on Facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, Facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. If you're a YouTube user, make sure you subscribe to our channel on there, YouTube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Again, YouTube.com/GoTellItToTheWall, or just search Go Tell It to the Wall on YouTube. And of course, my own personal Instagram account, which has a bunch of content in the hopper. That's going to be going up over the next couple days, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean, at SoCalSean. And, of course, our website, SeanO'RourkeLive.com, which features links to our Patreon, as well as our merch website if you want to support us financially and rock some of that common sense merch, which there is some out in the world. We just got to get more of it out there. Speaking of which, we had pins made a little while ago. So if you see me running around at a show, hit me up, and if I've got a pin in my pocket, I will throw one your way. Not literally, because pins are sharp, but I will hand it to you respectfully, I guess you could say. All right. On that note, this has been episode 132 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And until next time, remember, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, and especially no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.